could you give yourself permission to look after your physical health and well-being forever, for the rest of your life? Could you grant yourself that? Could you give yourself the permission and grace that you are valuable enough to really take care of this forever? And it's not because there's a problem necessarily, but because this is our one body. We know from the concepts and principles of biotensegrity that we are self-renewing, we self-assembled, we are able to heal for that healing and well-being to occur.
Welcome to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, the podcast where honest conversation meets real evidence-based solutions for your pelvic health. I'm Claire Sparrow, second-generation Pilates teacher, educator and best-selling author. I'm here to help you understand your body better, move with confidence, and finally get answers that make sense. Each week, we'll bust myths, share insights from movement science and pelvic health research, and give you practical steps you can actually use in your everyday life. Because pelvic health isn't just about exercises, it's about reconnecting with yourself, one breath, one choice, and one movement at a time. Let's get started.
Welcome to this week's episode of Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. It's great to be here, and it's another week, and lots has happened, as always, in my world in a week. And this episode is called The Trust Factor, what your pelvic floor really needs to heal. And it's come about because I've been doing a lot of teaching. I'm always doing a lot of teaching around the principles and application of something called biotensegrity. I'm teaching the concept of this to teachers. I was teaching in China. I was teaching it online for Polestar Pilates for their pro workshops. And the latest time I was teaching this idea was over in lovely Portugal, in Porto, where I got to meet some incredible, open-minded, caring, nurturing teachers, and also some incredible women in their community over there, which was such a joy and such a treat. And it's always very important to me when I travel, if it's at all possible, for me to be able to see and work with the actual women in these teachers' communities. So it's been a real treat to be able to do that. And I thought it would be useful to share with you what biotensegrity is, roughly, generally, and really it's the backbone of whole body pelvic health. It's the whole body element of whole body pelvic health, and the method that I teach and believe wholeheartedly in. The foundation of it is biotensegrity. So I've been teaching it this way forever. The concepts were born out of my growing understanding of biotensegrity. And it really a new science. It's not terribly mainstream, but it's also working incredibly well. Some of you will already know Anna Kroll, the pelvic floor physiotherapist, women's health physiotherapist, who's done 2 incredible research papers applying the principles of this new science of biotensegrity to the treatment of pelvic organ prolapse. And in her work and in the work that I've been doing with whole body pelvic health, we've actually achieved way above the clinical norms for the results that we're having with prolapse. So it really is incredible, even although it's quite a new science. There is very little research to apply it to the pelvic floor. And I feel really quite strongly about it because we are talking about the whole body. Biotensegrity is, you may have heard the phrase, when one part moves, all parts move. This is from Tai Chi, and this is a great example of what biotensegrity is. So how can we possibly do lots of studies and research into just the pelvic floor when actually we are an integrated system that when one thing moves, everything is affected? So that's kind of, this is surface level. Let's get a little bit deeper into what that really means. So in general anatomy, we have an understanding, or the model, that we are a stacked system, like one block sitting on another block. We're constructed in this way. And actually, it's a great idea for buildings, for architecture, this sort of stacked idea. Buildings work very well in this basis. But if we were stacked like this as our architecture, well, we would fall over. How do we work if we lie on our back? In Pilates, we do lots of fun things where we roll around on the floor and our legs go up in the air while we're on our back. How would that work if we were built out of parts and stacked up like an building, like an architectural building? So biotensegrity comes about from a different architectural model called tensegrity. And instead of the idea that it's block on block on block, it's actually the opposite. So the blocks, so let's think of the blocks in our body as our bones. So instead of the bones being stacked on each other, they're actually suspended. They are in the elastic of our body, and they're suspended. They're held apart rather than together. Somebody who's been really pivotal in developing this concept of biotensegrity out of that tensegrity model is Stephen Levin. And he has been quoted as saying that, if we had bone on bone, there would be a problem. This would be dysfunction. If, for example, a woman has severe, or a man has severe osteoporosis, so reduced bone density, their posture might change such that they fold forwards and their ribs can end up resting on their pelvis in very extreme cases, but this can happen. And if it does, they are in extreme pain. We have cartilage, we have ligaments and tendons, we have all of these systems in our body that are there to suspend the bones away from each other. So we are not stacked on each other and in pain and in dysfunction. And it's the relationship. It's not that the bones are less important or the connective stuff is more important. They're all working symbiotically together all the time. And if there's an imbalance in that system, that's when we might have pain, and it might be aches and pains rather than chronic something really bad. And we might not really notice it that much because it's just feels like life. You might, in pelvic health terms, if there's an imbalance somewhere in the suspension system, you might have incontinence or pelvic organ prolapse. And it's so important. And it's something that we have to trust. We have to trust that this is the way that our system has evolved and is grown that way, because we literally self-assemble into the tension. Our bones grow into the tension system. And we are self-healing, self-generating. It's the most incredible system. It's called autopoiesis. And in biotensegrity, that means that our body's not only built as this suspension, the self-supporting system, but it's also self-creating. And this is where the trust comes in, self-renewing. So the structure is this biotensegrity idea, and it exists only because of the continuous process of our bodies repairing and adapting all the time. So a good example of this is, you'll know, we shed our skin, it's the dust in our houses. And that is not just the only part of us that is able to self-renew. Our whole body is doing this all of the time. And we need to find a way to trust that. And we need to create an environment, so the physical environment that you're in and your body's environment, an environment that aids that helps that to happen. If you don't move very much, if you sit in one posture or stand in one posture for long periods of time, then we are creating an imbalance, and we make it difficult for this self-renewing, repairing amazingness that is our amazing bodies. So, you might, we mentioned the phrase, this idea of when one part moves, all parts move. But you might wonder, well, what does that really mean in pelvic health terms? And a great example is with your head. So when your head comes forwards, and I'm here on the screen now, I am just as susceptible as anybody else for my head to come forwards. When your head comes forward, something else will go back to counterbalance that, and then something else will come forward to counterbalance that, and so on, all the way down your body. So when one piece of you moves out of your central axis, your center of gravity, your balancing point, it's not a static, it's a balancing, then everything else is going to compensate, we could say, or respond in like to that movement of your head. So what does this even mean to your pelvic health, and what does it have to do with trust? So if we are going to help your pelvic floor to function spontaneously, and for me, that's the goal, to function spontaneously, we shouldn't have to pause before we sneeze to engage our pelvic floor to make sure we don't wee ourselves. It should just do that spontaneously. The same with running, jumping, any other activity. Normal life should just have the pelvic floor doing its thing without us having to say or do anything. So we need to work on the movement, the posture, the alignment of your whole body. And then you need to trust that by creating this environment, like we said before, the optimal conditions in your body, that your body is designed and capable. It really, really is capable of healing itself. And this is the bit where, even for me, it's challenging. It's really challenging that it is designed to go home, and it only stops doing that because of the postural imbalances, faulty breathing patterns, injuries, and immobility from sitting or repeated postures. And trusting that when we move the whole body, we create an environment for your pelvic floor to function spontaneously. I know it's a little bit mind-blowing, and it is challenging to trust. And as a teacher, and those of you that are teachers listening, we have to trust that we're never in control of the person that's moving and being taught by us, and that even in our own bodies, that we can't have cognitive control over the outcomes. We can just create the best ever environment and conditions for your body to heal itself. I feel slightly nerve-wracked even just sharing it, because it is a big deal. Trust can be difficult just in life anyway for us. And, I think a part of it is to do with a time element. We so often want to have a time goal, or a time frame by which we expect something to have happened. And unfortunately, when it comes to our bodies, we can't give a time frame. We have to accept that it's not a straight line, that the goalposts may move along the way. Maybe you're making progress and menopause happens, or you become pregnant, or you fall and have an injury, or you have a period of stress and your breathing is affected. So with the best will in the world, having some kind of time frame deadline is just not realistic. It just isn't real life, is it, really? So how do we trust our body when we have had something happen, like a birth injury, or we have incontinence or prolapse? In those moments where it feels like, I've said before, I felt like my pelvic floor let me down or I'd let it down. What do we do in those moments? How do we feel the trust in those moments? And that is a feeling I've grappled with an awful lot. So I thought I could share, as I like to do in the podcast, tactical steps and ways for you to be and manage those moments where you do need to dig deep and trust. And I see this a lot in our membership community where people are making great progress and then something happens and we have to dig deep and find trust again that actually truly our body is designed to restore and heal itself. We just need to keep giving it the right information so that it can do that. And mentioning the membership, the community of women there, community is key. That's the first thing that I would say to you, is that talking with other women in similar situations, it can really give reassurance and that important sense of understanding that you're not alone. And I see this more than anything is just the reassurance that women get when they say out loud, this is happening. And another woman in the community says, oh, yes, that happened to me too. And I did this and I felt better. Or I stuck with it and naturally I felt better, whatever it might be. And it immediately makes you feel better just knowing you're not alone, no matter what the thing is, whether it's pelvic health conditions or we're just talking about parenthood or going through menopause or anything in life. Being in community and talking is really, really helpful for our confidence that we're not alone. And then the second thing is, and I tell you, this one is a tricky one even for me, is taking the time frame away. The number of times that women ask me, well, how long will it take for me to feel an improvement? How long will it take me to restore my prolapse? How long will it take me to be able to run without wetting myself? These are the real life desires that probably many of you listening will be feeling. And unfortunately, we can't give a time frame because for every woman on the planet is a variation on the theme woman, because your prior experiences and things that have gone on in your body before that symptom are completely different. Your height is different. Your weight is different. Your pelvis shape is different. What activities you've done. Were you a gymnast or a dancer as a child? Did you horse ride? Did you play chess all through your childhood? Did you do a lot of sports in adulthood? Do you play paddle every week? Do you go to Pilates studios every week? All of our physical uses of our body are completely different throughout our life. Therefore, our body has adapted and healed and restored and built itself around those activities. You may have had a birth injury. So if you had an episiotomy, your episiotomy is not the same as my episiotomy. If you had a tear, your tear is not the same as my tear. We are all so different from the beginning, and then what we add into the recipe or the map of our bodies, completely different. So it's impossible to give a timeline. And if we could just take that time frame away, we take expectations away. We take pressure away. We take this idea of being fixed away, because your body will then have this freedom. Your head will have this freedom to settle into the parasympathetic nervous system, that part of your nervous system that is created to support healing, nurturing, to really support the goal in the first place of improving whatever it is that's going on for you. But if you're in that fight or flight, that high stress, sympathetic state, your body literally cannot heal as well, as quickly. And so if we can get out of that into the parasympathetic, take that time frame away, you're going to have a much better chance of achieving your goal and doing it more swiftly. And then the last thing is kind of filtered from that second point, really is taking away the idea that you're going to be fixed, that there is an end point and then we can move on with the rest of our lives. It's a tricky one to say, and I have touched on this before in the podcast, this feeling of like, oh, I'll be finished, I'll do those exercises, it'll fix this problem, and then I'll be finished, I'll not have to think about it again. But could you give yourself permission to look after your physical health and well-being forever, for the rest of your life? Could you grant yourself that? Could you give yourself the permission and grace that you are valuable enough to you to really take care of this forever? And it's not because there's a problem necessarily, but because this is our one body. We know from the concepts and principles of biotensegrity that we are self-renewing, we self-assembled, we are able to heal, and only in that environment, that positive environment, which means that we do need to continue to create a good environment in our body for that healing and well-being to occur for the rest of your life. So maybe it's making that commitment, like, if you're married, you make that commitment to be with that person for the rest of your life. You're with yourself for the rest of your life, your body for life. So taking away this notion of ever being fixed or finished, that you're just going to love yourself, care for yourself, nurture yourself, and believe in yourself for the rest of your life. Wow, that got a bit deep. I wrote in the book about how, and if you haven't read the book, it's Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, but I'm sure most of you have now. But I wrote about what this work is really, really about for me. And it's because I truly believe that every woman deserves to love themselves. And ultimately, that is a sign of self-love, the ability to grant yourself permission to look after yourself, really and truly. So that's my takeaways for you to go and work with this week. And in case you want to know a little bit more, because we've not gone into great depth about what biotensegrity is, I wanted to share one of my favorite quotes. I have a lot of quotes that I like that are relatable about biotensegrity. And this one is from Graham Scarr. He's an author and a real leader in biotensegrity in the UK, which I think is very exciting. And he says that the biotensegrity concept inherently recognizes that stability and ease of movement are not due to the strength of individual components, but because of the way this system is configured to distribute mechanical forces. So what this tells us is it supports the idea that it's not your pelvic floor, it's not those muscles, those individual components that hold up your pelvic floor that are the scapegoat for everything, because they're only part of a bigger system. And the force of hitting the ball at paddle or tennis or running and your foot impacting the ground, the force of that distributes through your whole body. And it cannot be that one component of your body is responsible for that. So it's really, I like that a lot. So I hope that you will give yourself permission this week to trust your body. And if you need support, you can join us at our free monthly Pelvic Health Café. The next one is Friday, the 21st of November. It's completely free. We have women from all over the world. It's very exciting. We talk about it all, and we meet at p.m. and that's UK time. And I'll put the link in the show notes below so you can register for that if you're not already. And you can also join the community on Facebook. I'm encouraging women to talk and support each other in there. It's not for me to be the conversation starter. It's for you. It's for you to go in and meet women who are also seeking answers and have questions to support each other. Of course, you can download the free Whole Body Pelvic Health app and you can from there listen to the podcast. You can get access to the free YouTube channel with classes and lots of other information there. And of course, you'll be listening to the podcast every week. And thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. This week, have trust in your pelvic floor.
Thank you for tuning in to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with someone who needs it. It really does help more women find the hope they deserve. For deeper support, head over to wholebodypelvichealth.co.uk to explore the Whole Body Pelvic Health membership. You can ask for more from your pelvic floor and I'll be here, your voice of hope every step of the way.